I'd like for you to comment on this body of Moses idea.
Yes.
Nobody knows where Moses was buried. Total mystery. People well, his tomb is over here, and it's got to be on this mountain. And you've heard probably a lot of those arguments.
Yes.
But this is very special. There's something very special about Moses, the lawgiver, the man of whom God chose to bring the law to humanity, and then he goes off, and we don't hear from him anymore. But here's a little side note: there's something valuable about his body. And
isn't that amazing?
That is. What's going on here?
It's amazing because this is an event, and like we said at the beginning, there's so much in the Old Testament that Jude covers that you don't learn in the Old Testament.
Right.
And this is one of those things that the Holy Spirit tucks in here in verse 9, that he puts it in here as if you and I should have remembered this event of Michael fighting with Satan over the body of Moses. And it's just amazing because it's nowhere in the Old Testament.
Two angels wrestling.
Super angels.
Super angels, a good one and a bad one, wrestling over the body of a man. And there's something, well, let's put it this way. I can't wait to learn what this was really all about. And I don't think we'll know until after we're home with the Lord.
Yeah, you can theorize, and I'm going to actually talk about this a little bit at our Branson conference here coming up. But there are hundreds and hundreds of references to Moses in the Old Testament, but only one about his body. And it's when the Lord decides to end his ministry and bring him home. And we all remember the story, right? Moses, in a sense, ended up at the end of his life apostatizing in a way because he struck the rock twice and he was not supposed to. And as a result, his ministry was ended by the Lord. Remember, the first time he struck the rock so they had water, the children of Israel kept complaining and murmuring, which the Lord talks about in Jude here in a minute. And so Moses struck the rock again, but the Lord said, no, speak to the rock, and I'll give them water. See, Gary, he was supposed to model the first and second coming of Christ. The first where the rock was struck for you and I, and the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. The second where the Rock of Ages shows up and speaks to give us life, which he speaks and wipes out his enemies at Armageddon. And when Moses struck it the second time, God basically said, that's it. Your ministry is finished. You're going to see the promised land, but you will never enter into it, in the flesh at least. And so the Lord takes it upon himself when he brings Moses home to bury his body at the foot of Mount Nebo. And that is fascinating. So you have across the Jordan to the east, Mount Nebo, and somewhere the Lord even said in the Old Testament, he told nobody where the body was buried. So he knew for some reason Satan wanted that body. And which gets into a whole discussion of why would Satan want a human body? And the other ministry that's cut short in the Old Testament is Elijah. And Elijah did the same thing. Remember, he was in the cave after battling Jezebel and the spirits of Baal and the occultic black magic, witchcraft, sorcerers, that were following Jezebel, the prophets of Baal. And he's in the cave. Remember, the Lord comes to him, Gary, and says, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm alone. It's just me. It's all me now. I'm all alone, Lord. And he says, Elijah, there are 7,000 that you don't even know about that are still carrying this torch. And at that moment, Elijah's ministry ended.